Hey, it's your friend Brad, and welcome to Pain to Performance. So you've done everything right. You cut the carbs, you added the workouts, you dragged yourself out of bed at 5 a.m. because somebody said that's what discipline looks like. And it worked until it didn't. The weight came back, the energy crashed, the brain fog rolled right back in. And no matter how hard you pushed, your body just stopped cooperating. And the worst part was not the scale. It was the voice in your head that said, "What's wrong with you?" Today, I'm sitting down with Sue, a physical therapist and women's wellness coach who hit the same walls and figured out what nobody told us. The rules have changed, you guys, and we've been playing by the old ones. Let's get into it. Sue, welcome to Pain to Performance. I'm really glad you're here because I have a feeling this conversation is going to make a lot of women feel like they finally have permission to stop blaming themselves.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'll tell you this. I want to start with something you shared with me before we even hit record today. You said you felt broken after your first son was born. Take me back to that moment, if you can. What was happening in your body and what was going through your mind?
So when I had my first child when I was 32, and I didn't realize it, but something that I'd had my whole life and always been dismissed for was actually coming to so much of a head that I couldn't ignore it anymore. And that was that I was diagnosed with celiac disease. And so this was the first autoimmune condition that I had been diagnosed with. And I learned how to eat in a way that took out gluten, soy, and dairy, which is like in everything.
It is.
But I did it diligently. And, all my GI issues went away after, a year or so. And that things were going along fine for the most part. I did have some orthopedic issues that occurred during the pregnancy because I have a very small frame and the babies were like 8 and 9 pounds. By the time I had my third baby at 38, he was almost 10 pounds.
Whoa.
I
That's
always say,
amazing.
you would see my belly coming in the room before, my face.
I feel so
like,
many pregnant women can relate to that.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yes.
When you finally got that celiac diagnosis, was that a relief or was it terrifying? Because I think a lot of people have this moment where they get a name for the thing and they don't know if that's going to make it worse or better. Where were you with that?
So I was accepting of it, and because it explained so many things. As a child, I would come home and my stomach would be hurting, and all the way even through college, and the doctors would just say, "Oh, you have a nervous tummy. When, this is over and that stressful situation's over, you'll be fine." And they would just tell my mom to give me an aspirin so that it would make me feel better, like a placebo effect. And, eventually the gluten would run through my body and I would be fine for a little bit, but it was a relief to understand, there's something that I can do about this. It's not just a mystery and it's not in my head. And I felt seen and heard and this is a thing. And it was hard in the beginning to get people to understand what gluten was. For instance, I'd go to the store or the restaurant and I'd order and I'd say, "I can't have gluten, which is in bread." And they would say, "Oh, but can you have a bagel? Can you have a waffle?" And I was like, "No.
That's still bread."
And so I realized people really don't know what ingredients are in food products. They just have a name for it and they just think it comes out of the sky. So anyway, there was a lot of education that I had to give to the servers and things like that. But nowadays, thankfully, it's so much better. And they go, "Is this an allergy or a preference?" They really ask.
That's so funny.
Thankfully,
I actually,
yeah.
I waited tables for a while, Sue. I did it through college. I was managing restaurants, bartending, right? And I remember the day that it became very common for everybody to be coming in and saying, "I have celiac." Well, there's a difference between a gluten intolerance and celiac disease, right? Celiac disease can kill you, right? And intolerance means you just don't handle it well. So from somebody that actually does have celiac, how do you feel about those individuals that are like, I just cut it out of my diet, so I tell everybody I have celiac? Like, how does that make you feel?
That's really annoying because I'm like, for them, it's a choice. For me, it's a lifestyle that I will always have to do, and it's my medicine. Like, it would be like taking away my medicine if there were such a thing, but there really isn't. So the diet itself is what heals my gut. And there's actually something, it's not an intolerance like you would have, say, to what is that dairy lactose intolerance? Like a lot of
Lactose?
people have that. So it's actually a sensitivity. And so the difference between an
Mm.
allergy and a sensitivity, and I just want to do a little education because
Yeah.
that's what the servers ask me. They say, is it an allergy or a preference? And I'm like, I don't want to say it's neither because it's actually an autoimmune disease is a sensitivity. It's not an allergy, which is a histamine response.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone has a peanut allergy, it can be life-threatening because they could lose their breathing ability because their throat could close up.
Mm-hmm.
For celiac disease, it's a sensitivity, meaning it has nothing to do with a histamine response. So I'm not going to have watery eyes or a runny nose or anything like an anaphylactic reaction. I'm going to have a GI issue, or I'm going to have a headache, or I'm going to have anxiety, or, there's a whole host. I may have muscle joint pain. I may break out in like eczema type thing, but not hives. So it's a totally different system than an allergy. But it is, in a sense, if I were to continue to eat gluten, all of those things that absorb in your small intestine, the nutrients, would get basically sloughed off. They wouldn't do their job
Mm-hmm.
anymore. And I would be extremely nutrient deficient. And that's a whole host of things. And so other than, the painfulness that happened, like I would feel
Of
like
course.
I would have an alien in my stomach. It would be, my
Oh,
intestines would be writhing so much. It would be like a spasm. You could literally feel and see my intestines
wow.
contracting. So, it's a different type of reaction, but it is painful, and it is in the long run not healthy to be malnourished.
Of sure. Yeah, of course. Like being emaciated is never good. So I thank you so much for that teachable moment there because I think, like, honestly, I feel like I'm a pretty well educated person on these types of things. But the way that you just explained it makes so much more sense, understanding that it's more of a sensitivity, right, than an intolerance,
Yes.
right? Or
Or an
preference,
allergy.
as some people say, or allergy. Correct.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love that. So you're saying that it's more autoimmune. And if I remember right, tell me if I'm incorrect, but a lot of times people start having these autoimmune problems and then they start realizing that there's more going on than what they expected. Did that happen to you?
Absolutely. After having my third child, they say that autoimmune can be a problem with like your body tipping the scale of like a stressor, whether you get sick or you just have a life stress or whatever. For me, having those huge babies and not realizing I had yet another autoimmune condition,
Hmm.
it was just the perfect storm for me to kind of have I guess you could kind of call it a health crisis. I felt like I was doing everything right. I'm eating all the gluten-free foods, but then I got diagnosed, and we can talk about that later, but with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is having to do with hormones that control pretty much every other hormone in your body. Your thyroid is the gatekeeper. But anyway, so that happened. And then I found out I had ADHD as an adult. After my children started going to school, I was like, that doesn't fall far from the tree. Maybe I have that. So that, and then the most recent thing that I found out that is related to ADHD and other autoimmune conditions is Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disease that has to do with the collagen not being healthy. And it's just a genetic thing. And so, there was a snowball effect of self-discovery. We'll put it that way.
That's a beautiful way of putting that. And I have quite a few patients that also have the same connective tissue disorder as well. And it's a fascinating thing. I don't want to jump too deep into that strictly because I think that could be a whole nother episode in itself.
Yes.
But can you tell me, when you went gluten-free and you started doing all of these things for your body that you thought was going to help improve it, and it did, and it started to for a minute, but it stopped working, is what I kind of heard and gathered from
Yes.
you for a second. What was that like, to feel like you'd figured it all out and then just have the rug completely pulled out from underneath you?
Yeah. So when I was in college, I got that freshman 15. A lot of us probably know what that's like. And I decided I was going to do Weight Watchers because that's what I had seen work for my mom. And so I did Weight Watchers and I lost the freshman 15. And I was like, okay, I understand how to lose weight. Well, as I started approaching my 38th birthday, I hit a wall in terms of being able to lose weight with this system that I had been able to use. Just cut back on all your calories. And I had been taught the food pyramid where you have the fats and the sugars at the top, and then you have the carbs at the bottom. And what I didn't see coming is that wasn't going to work for me anymore. Even though I was eating gluten-free carbs, I was still eating breads, bagels, and all that was gluten-free, flour. And so I started exercising more. I had always exercised as a kid. I was doing dance, and then I was an aerobics instructor in college, and I was always at the gym doing some kind of thing, or I was running, training for half marathons or training for triathlons. I just was really always like, I took my fitness very seriously. So I thought, well, I'll just increase my intensity. I'll get up at 5:30. I'm going to do CrossFit, or I'm going to do some kind of boot camp in the neighborhood. And then my weekends, I would go and do aerial arts, which is like, Cirque du Soleil.
Yeah.
And I love dancing. So I do some Zumba classes. It was a lot of cardio, but I did learn about the weightlifting with my trainer across the street. I had this sweet lady who would host all of us moms of young kids in her house, and we'd have a babysitter upstairs, and we'd go to the gym, and she taught us weightlifting, and she taught us some dietary things that could possibly help. So I was very hesitant at first to change my mindset on that, but I started practicing some things and I've got some great results.
That's fantastic. So I think what's important of what it is you just said and what you just shared is that you're not someone who was ignoring their health. It sounds to me like you were doing everything that you could. You had the diet, you were exercising, heck, you were even lifting, right? And you were doing everything you were told to do, everything that you learned to do. And you said that system just stopped working for you. And if, like, listeners, if you're listening and that sounds familiar, that's not a personal failure, right? Sue, you would agree with that, right? It's not a personal failure. It's just a system that you said that doesn't work for you anymore. It wasn't designed for your body. So here's what I want to get into next, because I think it's where it gets really interesting. So you said you hit this wall. You had multiple diagnoses at this point. Nothing was working the way that it used to. And then something shifted. Something clicked for you. What was the moment where you realized you had to throw out the old playbook entirely? What was that defining moment?
Well, it was the chronic hip pain from running so much that I would go to the physical therapist. And even though I am a physical therapist, I had to go to somebody because, I can't cure myself all the time.
Sure.
So I was doing dry needling and I was doing all the exercises and stretches and everything. And the PT finally said to me, look, you've done everything. I can offer you nothing else. Like you're just going to have to stop running. And I was like, what?
That's crazy.
I mean,
that's crazy talk.
That's like, yeah, I was like, that's how I, calm myself down. I get my endorphins and everything. Yeah. And so I had to find something else. And so that was the pivot moment where I was like, okay, what can I do? What can I do differently that's going to give me the stress relief and also not make me keep gaining weight? And I realized that I'd been going on walks with my neighbor who was like 15 years older than me. And she's like, oh, just you wait when you get to your late 30s, your metabolism's going to slow down. And I was like, I just didn't believe it, but it's true. It did.
Sure.
And nothing worked that scale just stayed the same no matter what, how much exercise I did and how much calorie restriction I did.
So that's crazy. So you're telling me that all of this stuff that was working, it just stopped. And like it doesn't help either that you had somebody else saying, hey, it's going to.
Yeah.
That's never a fun feeling. So was that the point where you said, okay, something has to give here. Like
Yes.
something has to give. What do I do? So
Yes. I was like, I'll try anything.
So tell me, like, what was the first thing that you tried? I'm really curious to see if I'm sure somebody else is in the same exact spot. So tell them where they're
Yeah.
going wrong right now.
Well, the first thing I tried was taking that food triangle and kind of flipping it upside down, that food pyramid or whatever. So then I was eating mostly protein and healthy fats only. And I cut out all sugar, like not sugar that's in fruit. Well, there's some fruits and vegetables that have sugar naturally in them. But
Hmm.
I did a pretty strict cleanse where I was just eating healthy protein, healthy vegetables that were fibrous but not grain. So I'm talking broccoli and avocado. Well, that's actually a fruit, but asparagus and squash and things like that. And then the healthy fats and no added any sugars or anything like that. And I tell you what, that fat was just like melting off. I couldn't lose it. I mean, slow enough. It was so fast. I was like, what the heck? This really works. So,
That's
yeah,
crazy.
I think I just realized I was addicted to sugar, honestly, and whether it was in a, grain form or whether it was like candy or whatever. I didn't really eat a lot of candy, but Thanksgiving or whatever would roll around and, actually it would start with Halloween candy, Thanksgiving and then Christmas and New Year's,
It just
you know.
rolls through.
Yeah, and before I knew it, I'd be back again to just being addicted to sugar. I learned that about myself, that food addiction is real and I had it.
That's such a really interesting thing because prior to us recording today, you told me something that kind of stuck with me. You said you grew up thinking you had to be perfect to be successful. And that mindset that mindset really never stopped pushing you mentally, eventually
Mhm.
showed up in your body as autoimmune diseases and this food addiction, right? Can you unpack that
Mhm.
for me? Like how does perfectionism let me ask that again. How does perfectionism become a physical health problem?
Great question. I believe that when one grows up, what strategies worked for them to feel safe or to feel loved or whatever to be comforted. Whatever those strategies were, a lot of times women can, and men can do this too, but I think women can become people pleasers and not care for themselves as much as they care about what other people think. And they want to basically do everything right. And I know I fell into that category. Before, anybody could say anything, I had already done the thing. And I did it to the best of my ability. My mom would always say, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right, or all the things. And I
Hmm.
think just, always I craved words of affirmation, which was praise and, oh, you're such a good girl, or you're so smart, or you're so pretty, or whatever, all the things. And so even though my mom didn't mean anything by it, like, she wasn't trying to make me crave all that stuff. But by telling me that I was this way, it became an expectation that I would always perform to this level. And my adrenal glands, I think, just got shot from just performing so much and just always going, going, going. Little did I know I had ADHD. So I was probably taking a lot of caffeine in. I know I was actually. So just to keep myself awake in class, my ADHD test, when I finally got it as an adult, I was off the scales, like over 100%. Like no one was worse than me, I guess. But I literally
That's
fell asleep
funny.
during the test. That's how
That's
bad I
amazing
was.
too. I get it. I so get it. I get it.
So anyway, yeah, I think I need to stay active in order to keep my brain awake. And so I do things. I just go and go and go until I'm exhausted. And I never had trouble falling asleep because I was so exhausted. I would just fall asleep. But, but yeah, so I think that it's just from years of being a people pleaser and always trying to perform and keep up with all the people that like don't have ADHD and just I kind of felt stupid because I would study for hours and my friends would be already out at the bar. And I'm still home, trying to figure out what bone connects to this muscle and what nerve connects to that bone and our muscle or
I get
whatever, all the
it.
things.
So what you're talking about is kind of a stress response, right? You're talking about the adrenal
Absolutely.
glands. So when you say your stress response never really turned off, Okay. What does that actually look like in the body specifically? Because I see this in my practice so much and like with neuromuscular work in general, people carry
Yes,
stress in ways they don't even recognize. So can you kind of talk
absolutely.
about that a little bit?
Yes. I'm a big believer in the body keeps the score. And so, for instance, if your shoulders are so painful and you just are like, just knot it up, it's literally you're trying to carry the burden of something that you shouldn't be carrying. You need to let that burden go. And whether it's a mental burden or a physical, but I think nowadays our system is so primed for staying safe. We think that, one little comment from someone is like, we're going to die. And so
Mm,
all these like stress hormones to go through our body and we're like trying to fight or we're trying to flee or we're trying to freeze or whatever it is. And, we just keep building all these stress hormones just make us either hold our position in our shoulders or maybe we get a sore throat because we're not talking and sharing what we really think. We're not sharing our truth. We're just trying to cover up so that we make someone else feel better. So then you get a sore throat. I had so many sore throats as a child. That was my first line of defense. So um yeah,
I get that. And I
that's
love
how
the
I
fact
think
that
it.
you bring this up. I think it's so great because I talk about that all the time and even in body work. And for those that understand meridians and things of that sort, I'm gonna kind of talk about that. Meridians are just kind of energy pathways throughout the body. They have been
Mhm.
scientifically proven too, by the way, for all those people that are coming to my comment section here. They have been scientifically proven. But with that being said, I talk to my patients a lot about the left versus the right part of the body, left being feminine, right side being masculine. And whenever they kind of start talking about things, I'll start kind of questioning and asking things. They're like, how did you know that? And I'm like, well, your body is telling me this. And it's
Yeah.
for those people that don't want to take that kind of idea into healthcare, kind of blows me out of the water a little bit because we are beings that deal with energy day in and day out, whether you want to believe that or not. That is what we are. We are made of that. So this is why I talk to a lot of people about just mindfulness in general and meditation. And like, I want you to be honest with me, though, Sue. So be honest with me for a minute. Did you resist any type of like mindfulness or meditation because you thought that you were a high achiever and like you were thinking, wait, that's medication. And you're like, I can't do that. There's different ways to be able to fix my brain. I can fix myself. Did you go through that? Because I know I did.
Well, yes, I tried to fix myself. Yes, I did. And I did I did finally understand like, what, there is something about this medication that but I resisted it for a long time. But now I'm like, okay, I need it. I
Right?
do have to,
Sure.
I take my Vyvanse, but there is something that again, I'm trying to fix myself here, but there's something called neurofeedback, which I've been doing. And you literally like, it's called Muse and you wear headphones. They detect your brain patterns and
Mm,
you watch a video and you try to concentrate in the way that is showing good attention, right?
hmm.
And it gives you feedback by playing it louder or showing it bigger or giving you little ding ding stars so you know you're thinking correctly for focus.
Interesting. I like
So
this.
neurofeedback does work. I mean, I'm always trying to figure out hacks on ways to decrease my medicine or, to try to be more healthy,
Sure, of course.
natural.
And here's the thing. I want everybody out there to understand, and I'm pretty sure you're going to agree with this, Sue. I'm not against medication because sometimes that really is what it is that we need to do. And that's where I
Mhm.
believe Eastern and Western medicine really do come together because it's a completely different situation. So I kind of want to digress out of that for a minute and then kind of go back to the weight loss and stuff that you were talking about
Mhm.
earlier. Okay. So
Yes.
I believe you told me, and if I quote you incorrectly, please feel free, correct me here.
Okay.
You told me that you dropped 4 dress sizes and lost 10% body fat, almost in what
Mhm.
seemed to be almost overnight, right? But I have a feeling the number isn't the part you're the most proud of, right? What actually changed that mattered more than the scale in that dress size?
Well, I did feel like I was actually more, believe it or not, more alert. Like I did have brain fog when I was eating the carbs more. I did. So, yeah. So I just kind of felt more energy. it was interesting. I felt like I was eating less, but I had more energy. And, and so, yeah, I just noticed some other things besides the way my clothes fit that I was surprised about.
Hmm. That's awesome. So you're saying that mental side of things was just as important as what was physically coming forward. And I think I hear that a lot with my patients, because what you're kind of alluding to earlier is something that I call the oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm blanking on it right now. But essentially there is a connection between the brain and the body. And what
Yes.
it is, the
The
mind, sorry,
gut, is it the
the mind
access?
body connection. I call it the
Okay,
mind
mind
body
body.
connection.
Okay.
And so a lot of my patients come in, and I mainly deal with chronic pain issues. I always tend to be people's last resorts, and then their saving grace is what I always say.
Mm,
So I always tend to be the last resort for them. They're like, I've tried
yeah.
everything, I've done everything. And granted, neuromuscular re-education is fantastic. I do a lot of that. But also, we also need to train the brain as well. You can trust that again.
Mhm.
And it definitely seems like you went through that as well, not only through a weight loss ideal, but also through the adrenals, through your celiac, through the Hashimoto's that we'll get to talk about. And it's your brain learning to trust your body again, allowing it to take care of itself and actually proceed forward. So I think my question here is why do you think things like this really actually come forward from a mind body kind of perspective? And I want to pick your brain as a physical therapist with this question. I'm
Okay.
sure you have people that come in with all of these additional issues, but they're really just coming in because they had a pretty rough recovery for a shoulder repair. But you're like,
Right.
wait a minute, there's tons of other
There's
things
more.
going on here. There's way more. How do
Mm.
you talk to them about
Well, I do bring up that whole the body keeps the score, and they start to go, "Oh, that makes sense. Yeah." And I share with them too, that, I go through my own health journey and things that have happened to me. Like, for instance, I went to the acupuncturist and I was going for, for autoimmune things. I want to heal my body of autoimmune. And so for immunity increasing, right? Well, one day I went in and I was like, I hate to say it, but I'm not going. Like, stopped at the pipes. And she's like, "Oh, that's fear." And I went, "Really? Tell me more." Because
it?
again,
What a
that
weird thing to say
mind
to me right
body
now.
connection.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and so she did the needles in the third eye, and she did one over here and some other places. On my foot was one, and those 3 I just remember the third eye one and the one over here and the one on my foot were stinging the entire time, and the one in my head one of the ones in my head had actually, like, fallen out. It was so much
Mm,
fear, I guess, like, I had allowed myself to relax because I was like, "Oh, this is taking care of it, like, I don't need to be in fear, like, I can let that go." And it was just the mere fact of having those needles put in that allowed me to, like, recognize what was going on and that it was real and I could let it go. So she, came back in and she was getting all the needles. She's like, "We're missing one and, this is bleeding a lot." And, like, I've never had all this blood come out. So it was like my life force was just like coming out. So anyway, I just wanted to say I do share things like that because it sounds woo woo, but it's real. And, I went like as soon as I got home, I was like good to go. you know,
I love
so
that.
I know I hate to
That's
be
so
graphic,
good.
but like it really
No,
works when you let go, when you relax. There's that whole thing you're retentive, right? Like
sure,
it's just
exactly.
fear.
And I thought about the same thing about reflexology while I was learning it in massage school, which, yes, people, that does exist. We do go to school for this to pass our board exams. But I remember going through that, which, by the way, reflexology is not on the board exams, just to be very, very clear. That was a thing that they kind of taught us to add a little bit of value to the education. But I remember I used to think this is the biggest load of crap I have ever thought of. And ironically, the universe always has a really fun way of kind of proving us wrong, right? I
Yes.
We get to the digestive system
Huh?
and we work the ascending, right? We work transverse and then the descending colon. And I think within 45 minutes of me leaving that evening, I took night classes because I was working in the daytime. But in the evening, by the time I got home, I will tell you The amount of what came out of me was absolutely insane. It was wild. And I go to class the next day and I was like, guys, I need to tell
It
you
worked.
something. And it works. So at this point, anytime I have clients that come in, I'm like, I got you. I know exactly what to do. You're not going to believe it works, but I promise you it does. So it's just one of those things where, again, Eastern meets Western. That is what we call wellness. And we have the ability to proceed forward with that. So I'm sorry, I diverged us into the woods. Let me get us back on track here. So I think that you told me something way previously. I think we've had several conversations at this point, but you said something that I think is going to blow a lot of people's minds here. So those that are still with us, get ready. You said that what happens in the kitchen matters more than what happens in the gym for women and the perimenopausal portions of life. That goes against everything that we have been told, right?
Yes.
Like talking about Eastern versus Western, right? Can you break that down for me?
Yes. So as I alluded to about the sugar is inflammatory. So it's going to affect your brain because it's going to make you have brain fog, right? Or it's going to affect your body in other ways. So whether it's inflammation from celiac disease or some other thing. So basically, I thought I was being healthy by eating gluten-free, but I was still eating sugar. And when you are in perimenopause and menopause, you are not growing. You don't need all that energy. Like there's no reason to have all that sugar. And in fact, some people even say that Alzheimer's is diabetes of the brain. So one other thing that I found out more recently is that a lot of women, including myself during perimenopause, actually have their A1C go up. And again, it's related to the whole cascade effect of the adrenals. The more stress you have, the A1C can go up. So hence why I had to learn to relax and do a lot of meditation and mindfulness and things like that. But my point is back to the kitchen. So once I took out that sugar or the processed foods that have sugar in them, I was able to heal my brain, my gut, the autoimmune, and the A1C. So it's amazing. But I think that once I would even stop exercising for weeks. And I was like, how do I do that? How can I still be thin and I haven't exercised for weeks? And I would just go, oh, it's because I'm eating healthy. Like for me, what a person in perimenopause that is of my genetic makeup, for whatever reason, being from, Ireland and whatnot, I think there's a lot of people that have celiac disease from there or whatever. And, there is that eat right for your blood type thing where some people do better with grain, but me, not so much. I need to be like that O positive blood type. They don't need any grain. That's not important for us to metabolize our food and everything. So we need to be eating meats and vegetables and healthy fruits and good fats. So I found what works for me was to eat that way and just keep eating that way. And the more I did it, the less I craved anything else any other way because it was like I felt so good. I was like, why would I want to go and feel bad? So it's kind of like that first transition from having celiac, eating gluten-free and dairy-free and soy-free, and then feeling good. I was like, why would anybody, cheat and have a croissant, which is my most desired thing because there's just no gluten-free versions of that anywhere. Can't have that. But anyway, so yeah, my point is that sugar, I think for me was the trigger that was causing me inflammation. Inflammation can cause autoimmune disease and the whole, thing. So I just kind of was able to heal myself going backwards just with food.
Interesting. So, and I just want to be careful here with this because everybody is different. And I know that you would agree with that also. So what's the principle underneath all of this that would apply to everyone?
I think in general, that whether you eat grain or you don't, whether you eat vegetable, you're a vegetarian or you're not a meat eater. It doesn't really matter if you are eating enough protein for your body and you are eating enough healthy fats and you are not eating processed foods that are meant to addict you to by the food industry, you're going to be fine. You're going to be great. You're going to be living your best life. But as long as you stay addicted to that food, you're like, oh, I got to have my such and such. And it's not working for you.
Yeah, sure.
Then you're going to be stuck.
Man, that's such good advice, because I think I said in like my second episode, guys, you'll have to go way back, but it was a single episode where I told everybody you're the own blocker in your own life, and you're making the same decisions, the same exact, like it's the definition of insanity, right?
Insanity.
Doing the same exact thing, expecting a different result. It's not going to change, you guys. So, all right. So this is the part of the show where I want to where I want to go after the thing that everybody thinks that they know. And I think you're starting to allude to it, because I think there's a massive misconception out there that's hurting women. And Sue, I want you to blow it to pieces. I want you to blow it to pieces. So what is the biggest lie in the fitness and wellness industry that the fitness industry is telling women? There we go. The thing that when you hear a client say it, you just instantly get the ick and you're like, oh, no, somebody told you this and I can't believe it. What is it?
It drives me nuts when women say, I don't want to lift weights because I'm going to get bulky. I'm going to look like a guy.
Okay.
And I got to say, I believe that too. I told my friend when she was having me lift weights, I was like, I don't want to get bulky. I don't want to look like a man. And she's like, girl, you're going to do you realize what a woman is going to have to eat in terms of protein in order to bulk up? Like, we're not meant to do that. That would be an insane amount of protein you would have to eat. And so I was like, okay, I'll trust you. And I never got bulky, ever. Like, I just lifted heavy weights, and I ate healthy food. So I would say that is one thing that really drives me nuts when I hear people say that. I'm like, that is so false. It's humanly impossible for a woman to get bulky from lifting heavy weights. There's got to be other changes. You got to take hormones or something.
So that's such an interesting piece that you just brought forward, because you've told me that most weight loss research was done on male bodies or like younger women, right? I don't think most people know that, because I know I didn't. Why does that matter so much?
Well, I'm going to tell you something about the nutrition part or the eating part too that goes with that. So say a woman and a man, they're both in their 40s, they are going to exercise together to lose weight, and they're going to eat, do this intermittent fasting. Well, I'll tell you, the man is going to lose weight, the woman is not. And it's because women have a different muscle makeup. Their muscle contains fat in it. Whereas, we carry that because it's a way to promote when we're pregnant, like a way to give energy to the child. And we need to have that extra fat in our bodies. Women have more fat in general than men when you're healthy. So the man will continue to lose weight if he's intermittent fasting and doing all this cardio and all this stuff. Women will maybe gain weight because they're stressed out. Their body is saying, wait a minute, you're not feeding me. I'm going to hold on to this fat and I'm going to lose muscle, because when and so it's ridiculous. So it just makes me so mad. So if a woman is going to lift weights, she needs to eat protein first in order to build the muscle, because if you're losing fat, you're going to lose the muscle too. It's just going to happen that way. But protein builds muscle. So you got to eat muscle, I guess, to make muscle kind of thing. Whether you're a vegetarian, it doesn't matter. You can get your protein vegetarian wise too. But the point is, a man can work out without eating and he will lose weight. A woman will not.
So that's really interesting.
That's one really big thing.
So if somebody's been doing the eat less, move more thing for years and it's just stopped working, what is actually happening to their metabolism? What did the old approach break?
They are basically causing their body to go into starvation mode instead of losing fat mode. And it sounds so counterintuitive, but you have to give yourself enough protein and fat to be satiated, or your body will think you're starving and will not let you lose weight. So you're stressing yourself out.
I've heard that. I've heard that you can't try to build muscle and lose, it's just not possible. You can't do it because your body is going to say
lose weight.
Correct.
To lose fat.
And correct. And that's what I've heard. And I was on a huge gym journey for a while. I started to bulk up, was doing all the great things. went through a couple of life events, and of course that fell through. So that's kind of my question I have here, especially for women in general. I've got some very powerful women in my life and I love them dearly. But with that being said, they're very busy individuals, right? They are extremely high performers with businesses and secondary businesses and tertiary businesses, and they don't really have time for self-care. And they're doing the best that they can trying to eat. What would be your advice to those women that are out there that are just trying to make it all meet and be able to actually get the success that it is that they're wanting?
I would say if they're doing cardio at all, stop doing that, especially if they're in the perimenopause time. I'm kind of talking about that. Do weightlifting because you will build muscle, and the more muscle you have, that muscle burns the fat. So I would say do that, but you must eat enough protein and good healthy fat in order to provide the nourishment that your body needs to build that muscle. So it's not just a single thing. You can't just, but if you can trade, if you can do healthy swaps, say you're eating a bagel and cream cheese for breakfast, maybe try an egg and cheese and no bagel. Give yourself more protein and fat and just make it a healthy swap. And you can for the busy people, I love meal prep. And I love making it boring because you don't have to have variety to nourish yourself. You can prepare egg muffins in a muffin tin with no bread at all and pop it in the freezer and pull it out and microwave it, and it's done. If you want to buy it at the store, fine. But just make sure it has healthy ingredients and read your ingredients first.
So if I know there's somebody out there right now that's saying maybe they're on a walk, maybe they're driving, whatever it may be, and they're thinking, I want to do this, right? You just said the egg muffins. I love that. I think it's beautiful. I will tell you, what about the people that do like variety in their life? That is me. I was meal prepping heavily. And I'll tell you this right now. I was eating ground beef and ground chicken. It was the blandest thing I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, I got results with it. You're right. But what is the first thing that somebody should do before they just overhaul their entire eating mechanism? Because that's what I did. And Sue, I will tell you, it does not stick. It doesn't. I would meal prep on Sundays and it took me forever. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I hate meal prep, right? So I did the complete diet change. I did everything. And then now I'm like, here I am again at 180 pounds, and I would really like to be back at my 170.
Yeah.
Granted, I am a male versus a female, so things are going to be a little bit different here because our biology is different, right? So what is the first thing that somebody should do rather than trying to overhaul the entire system? What's an easy first step?
I think they need to take sugar out.
Really?
I do.
Okay.
I think it's the most damaging to your body thing that we eat, and we think it's normal because it's all processed food. They either do one of two things to make it hyper palatable. They'll either add extra salt or sugar. And one other pet peeve I have is low fat foods that have sugar. You think you're eating low fat and you're healthy because it doesn't have fat. We don't need to be afraid of fat as long as it's a healthy fat. You're not eating Crisco. You're eating olive oil. Don't be eating margarine. Swap it out for real butter. That's not unhealthy. Real butter is actually better for you than margarine because margarine is one molecule away from
plastic.
Thank you.
I have heard that. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And what is plastic? Gasoline.
Sure.
Petroleum, right?
Yes.
So do you want petroleum in your body, or would you rather have real butter? And it tastes better, So, but yeah, I would take out sugar. I think that is the one thing that as a nation, I think most people, if they took it out, they would realize how addicted they really are to it.
I will tell you this right now, Sue, without a doubt, I am addicted to sugar. Like, I showed you what it is I was drinking. I'm afraid to show it to you on camera that people are going to go blast this company. Right? But I showed you what it was I was drinking prior to us starting and hitting record today. And I'm looking at that right now, and I'm like, I cannot believe I just did that. That is a lot of sugar. And you're right. It is very normalized. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people forget is that we don't have to overhaul our entire life. Like I tried to, you guys don't do it. But we don't have to do that by Monday, right? It's a simple mindset and lifestyle shift whole foods, moving your body in ways that actually serve you. That's the game, right? That's
And in
that's
timing
what
what you eat, when you eat. Like,
I
make sure
again,
you eat before you exercise as a woman. Key.
interesting. Okay, that's a great key piece of information as well. Because I'll tell you, Sue, I always had a pre-workout meal. And my pre-workout meal, ready for this, was white rice, a tablespoon of honey, a banana, and I think it was 300 grams of ground beef. That's what it was I was eating. So, like, I kind of hit a lot of the different areas, right? I got the carbs for
Mhm.
the energy, protein to build,
Yeah.
right? The honey for the energy, the banana for the potassium and the vitamins. Great. And then directly after that, I would go eat again. I
Okay.
was eating so much. And that's what I'm saying. I overhauled my entire life by Monday. And
Mm,
it made it so difficult to be able to get there. So the people who get better are not the ones who do something dramatic one time like I did, right? They're the ones who do
right.
something small every single day. And that's one thing that I
Yes.
love to talk about on this show, because that is literally the definition of going from pain to performance. A small, little, tiny step every single day to be able to get to your goal. I love that.
Amen. I agree. Little
So, Sue,
shifts here and there.
just a little bit, right? So I'll tell you, I think this is one of those conversations where I really have a good feeling that people are going to hit rewind and listen over and over again. Either one, because they're going to want to try to get my really yummy recipes, right? Woohoo. but, but, but before I let you go, where can people find you if they want to learn more or if they want to work with you? Because you do some pretty incredible things whenever it comes to coaching.
Thank you. Well, the best way to get me if you would like the women's wellness coaching is Wholey Healed Community, and that's WHOLEY community. And I'm on that same with Facebook and Instagram. If you would like physical therapy locally, although I can do telehealth too, but if you need some hands on work in the Atlanta area, whether you want infrared light therapy or just regular physical therapy, hands on stuff, it's special settings pt.com. SPECIALSETTINGS. PT for physical therapy.com.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again, Sue. I've had a great time. It's been a really good, it's been great to get to sit down and talk to you for a minute and pick your brain, laugh a little bit.
It sure has. Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful.
Absolutely. Well, with that being said, Sue, I'm probably going to be coming to see you at some point. Your wellness, nutrition, and everything, the way that you bring forward information and the way that the way you talk about it so passionately is also just something that's just so wonderful and just brings so much joy to my days. So again, thank you, thank you, thank you for being on the show. All right. Before you go, I just want to say one more thing. And I want you to really sit with this. If you're a woman who has spent months or years pushing harder, eating less, working out more, and wondering why your body won't listen to you anymore, I need you to hear this. Your body is listening. It's been listening the entire time. The problem was never your effort, though. The problem was the instructions you were following were written for somebody else. Sue said something today that I won't forget. She has said that self-care isn't selfish. And I'm going to add to that a little bit. Resting is not quitting. Feeding your body what it actually needs is not giving up. Aligning your life with the season you're actually in, that's not weakness. That is the definition of strength. So what I want you to do is pick one thing from this episode and do it tonight. Not Monday, do it tonight. That is pain to performance. If someone you love needs to hear this, send them this episode. Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is let them know they're not alone in what they're going through. And guys, I'll see you next time. This is Pain to Performance. Before we take off, one quick housekeeping thing. This podcast is for education and conversation only. I'm in no way a licensed therapist, doctor, wizard, and this show is not a substitute for care from a qualified professional. If something today made you think of someone you know, go ahead and do them a favor and send this episode their way. Pain is rarely a solo experience, and a good conversation is better shared. And if you're enjoying the show, make it official. Follow, subscribe, leave a review. It helps more than you realize and keeps this conversation going. Remember, The hardest part of Pain to Performance is learning how to listen. Now, I'll be here, same place, next play, and I can't wait to welcome you in.